Yeah, we're here with Brandon Holtz, fresh off playing in the Masters last week. Brandon's a Bloomington High School and ISU grad who played mostly basketball growing up in addition to golf, but obviously has become an excellent golfer too, and earned his ticket to Augusta with winning the U.S. Mid-Amateur Championship last September. Welcome, first of all, Brandon. I've known you forever. Covered you back in the Bloomington High School basketball days when you were making three-pointers instead of trying to birdie par threes. But just one thing I wanted to ask you is, obviously since September you kind of had maybe imagined what this might be like, and your whole life probably kind of dreaming of what it would be like. And how did the reality match up with what you expected might happen?
Yeah, no, Randy, thanks for having me on. Much appreciated, and to tell this story is pretty neat. But no, as far as the reality, we don't know what we don't know. We didn't know what we didn't know, and we had expectations. Being a patron for 15, 20 years, we kind of understood what we were getting into, but we didn't really understand the magnitude when it was all said and done. But so I guess. Now, after going through this and knowing what I know, it was similar. I wouldn't say exactly what we thought it might be, but overall, I mean, it was a great week, great experience, and really, I mean, I didn't have my best stuff, didn't play as well as I'd like to, but also, I mean, that course was a lot more difficult than I ever imagined. And if you listen to the pros on TV, they are saying the same thing. That was good, for my sense. And again, some motivation. I don't want that to be my only time out there. It was too much fun. For my sense. And again, some motivation. I don't want that to be my only time out there. It was too much fun. Kind of what I've been telling everybody is if that yard, whatever yardage it was, say 160, if you hit it 160, it was perfect. If you hit it 161 or 159, it's the difference between, a birdie opportunity and then, trying to save bogey. So it's just, the greens were super, super hard. They were hard to navigate. I had 5 pre-practice rounds, and then I had 3 practice rounds I was out there, and it was night and day how firm and fast it was came Thursday. And you try to plan and recreate some of these shots in the practice rounds, but you can't until you actually do it. So that's another motivating reason for me to want to get back out there, is just because now I kind of know where I need to be. And it takes a lot of the guessing. I was doing a lot of guessing on Thursday, just to try to figure out where I needed to be. And now I know.
Yeah. And I should point out that Brandon shot 81 the first round, 78 the second round. And I know the Friday, the second round, you had your 1 under par through 5 holes, and then you finished well. You had 2 birdies in the last 4 holes.
Mm-hmm.
And so for 9 of those holes, you were 3 under. It was just in between. It's easy to get, I think you mentioned the bogey train. It's easy to get on that and hard to get off, isn't it?
Oh yeah, well, and it's 18 holes of complete concentration. And like I said, that 160 shot, if you hit it 161 or 159, like you're rolling down the hill and you got a 50 yards chip shot to try to get up and down for par. So it's not easy. It wasn't easy. And for a guy who doesn't do this, for his full-time job, and it's April, for an Illinois guy in April, I did my best to travel over the winter, but it wasn't enough. My wife and I, continue to joke like, hey, if this happens again, it might be time to start moving south, But no, it is what it is. Again, you don't know what you don't know, and it was a great experience. And like I said, I'd be happy to play well again this summer and try to get back out there.
Yeah, and it's one of those deals where probably the magnitude of the crowd too that you're playing in front of, you can kind of, I guess you maybe got a little taste of that in the par 3 contest on Wednesday, but still the actual tournament and the thousands of people that are there. What were you feeling on the first tee on Thursday when you had to hit that first drive?
Yeah, I was kind of joking. I felt like, if you, as a patron, you could probably see my heart beating out of my shirt, a little bit. But, you were right when you had, I got there on Saturday. Saturday and Sunday were pretty much just like an open day. There was no crowd. And then Monday, I made it to the point where I told myself I'm going to try to engage as much as I can with the crowd, just to create that, that comfort. And I felt like I did a pretty good job. And when I did get to the first tee Thursday, I surprisingly wasn't as nervous as I thought I might be. But it also, I had 3 days to prep with, crowds like this. And, great story. I got to number 6 on Monday. And, you got the adrenaline off 1 tee, 2 tee, you're starting to come down a little bit off of it, trying to get comfortable. I got up to 6. It's a par 3. It's like a little into the wind. It's like 180. I had 6 iron, and I tried to like pinch it a little bit just to keep it a little bit lower, and just cold shanked it. Just cold shanked him, and didn't even touch the face, right off the hosel. And I think after that moment, and then I re-teed, being a practice round, I just put another one down and hit it to, just like 15 feet or something. But I think once I got that shank out of the way, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, I can't embarrass myself anymore, right? I'm sitting here hitting shanks in front of, 1,000 people around the tee. And ever since then, I just, it was just a little bit more sense of comfortability for sure.
You mentioned the focus and everything that it takes to play around there. Was that the most mentally drained you've been after a round of golf, just because you had to probably think and focus so hard on every shot?
Hands down. I mean, around here specifically, you can kind of get into a round of golf and just kind of take a break. And you miss the green and you kind of easy up and down for par. Out there, you can't. You hit every shot that you hit, is basically uses the same amount of concentration from the previous shot. And then that next shot's going to be the same thing. So, yeah, I was mentally just toast.
Yeah. And did the fact that you did interact with the patrons, as they are called at the Masters, they don't have spectators, they have patrons.
Sure.
And you don't play the front 9 and the back 9, you play the first 9 and the second.
Correct.
9. There's a lot of traditions there. But did that help ease the nerves a little bit too, that you were fairly often you were engaging people in the crowd and kind of making it, letting your personality come out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, hands down. And that was kind of the goal. To get comfortable for me is to talking to people and engaging with the crowd. I tried every kid that I seen on the ropes. Tried to go, high five or fist bump, tell a story. Just not only for myself but for them. I was once that kid that was out there reaching for hands. And I just wanted it to be fun for everybody. Yeah. And I felt like I did a pretty good job. I got a quick story on I believe it was Friday maybe. I'm teeing up on 16T. I have three boys sitting down there, and they're begging for a golf ball, and I'm like, maybe. So we all get done hitting our shots, and they're like, well, how about rock, paper, scissors for it? So in the meantime, I grabbed 3 balls out of my bag, and we're walking away. I'm like, yeah, all right, let's go. Rock, paper, scissors. And I said, the bad thing about playing me is I don't lose, and he started laughing. So, we went to rock, paper, scissors. He threw the paper. I had the scissors. And I looked at him and I said, dang it, I told you I don't lose. And I started walking away. And you could just feel the sense of like, oh, man, defeat. And then I threw the 3 balls behind me right to him. And then you heard the crowd go wild. So just little things like that. It just made me comfortable, made me have fun. And it made the kids have fun. I mean, at that point, I can't remember. I think it was Friday. But, I was out of the tournament, So let's have fun with it. And I just hit it to like 5 feet. So there's some, it was just fresh, it was fun for those kids. And I had a good time doing it too. A story that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Now here I am at the Masters playing rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. Who would have ever thought, right? Yeah. All that training as a kid paid off for you. And should mention on the practice days, Monday and Tuesday, you got to play some practice. Mm-hmm. Practice with some pretty big names there, and I guess what was that like?
Great. No, I got I teed off with one of the amateurs on Monday, FIFA Lebdoki, I think. I can't remember his last name, something like that. But he only played 9. I went on to the back 9, and then Tommy Fleetwood and another amateur caught up to me, and I waved them up. So I got to play the last 7 holes with Tommy Fleetwood on Monday, and talk about an extraordinary dude. I mean, the guy was hands down over the top, into, your personal life. How's the family? How you doing? The feelings. We talked about golf, the emotions, and he was just a real personal guy. And ever since that day, if I ran into him in the locker room, he'd go out of his way to say hi. So that was great. And then on Wednesday, played with Jordan Spieth, another dude that just was down to earth, caring about family, and he's got a couple young kids himself. So, we got to just talking about that instead of the actual golf. So it's cool to see that these guys are robots when it comes to golf.
Yeah.
But they're not robots. They're people. They have good conversations, and nothing against, media guys, but there's some bad media out there that can twist their story. And after talking to them, I got, they're fans for life. I'd want to be their fan for life, and I will be, just because of that interaction we had, for sure.
Yeah, and I think Tommy's like the third-ranked player in the world right now.
Yeah, he's
and
not
obviously
very good.
Jordan, Jordan has won every major, but one, I think. So
yeah,
he's obviously been a great player. And then when you played in the tournament, the 2 rounds, Bubba Watson was in your group, a 2-time Masters champion. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, really the same. I actually played with Bubba and Jason Day in the par 3 as well, and again, those 2 guys, just extraordinary people, and I've heard, Bubba get some bad rap, but the guy was great. He talked to me when we wanted to be talking, and I'm 39. I understand when this is a comforting conversation or not. So, I kind of walk around lightly and try to start conversation, and if if it's inviting, then I'll keep going. But if it's not, there's no big deal. I'm in these guys' office, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm there trying to play too, but I'm in their office, like I said. So I'm here staying out of their way, and just enjoying it. It's at times I just kind of sat back and was watching as a fan myself, and then the par 3, playing with all their kids, and then my kids having, my son on the first hole, I hit it a little left off the green. I chipped it up about 5 feet, and it was like this downhill slider. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't want no piece of this, right? And from the start, I told Baker, I said, hey, you're going to putt on every green because this is what it's about, right? He gets up there and just knocks it in casually, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, he was made for this, right? And he's 6, so he has no idea what's going on. The crowd goes wild, and you could just see, the spark in his eye, this is pretty cool. Yeah. And then he threw the pressure on me that night. We're putting him to bed, and he's like, hey, Dad, can we go do that putting thing again? And I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. I better play good this summer. Yeah. We can't do that tomorrow, but maybe next year. So it was just a great time.
And the par 3, your wife, Liz, and your daughter, Millie, who's 2. Is
2,
that right?
yeah,
and
she's
so,
2.
So the whole family's out there, and was that obviously it was fun, but kind of emotional too, to be able to experience that with them.
Definitely emotional, especially when we got done. It was just like, I wish, you try to take all these experiences and slow it down.
Yeah. And
it goes so fast. Even if you try to slow it down, it just didn't slow down enough, But yeah, it was just watching them walk and interact. My daughter, she's a feisty one. And she just had a complete meltdown on number 7 fairway, I believe. We were walking up to the and I just actually hit a great shot, almost made it, kind of went by the pin, and so everyone's hooting and hollering, and she just needed a snack, right? So she threw a fit. My wife finally picked her up. The crowd went wild for just picking her up, but we got her to my family, and they went and got her snack. So then she came back out on number 9, happy as could be, But just, those things are just things you'll never forget.
Yeah, and not only your immediate family, but you had other family members there, and then some close friends from here, and just seeing how much it impacted them. Did that make you feel even better to see their experiences?
Yeah, I've always been kind of that guy. When I win, we all win. And it was great to just have that experience with all them and talk about it. And my family, my good buddies who are there, we're going to be good buddies for the rest of our lives, right? And this is just a story that we can continue to talk about and continue to share. So it was, again, another moment where, I'm out there obviously for myself, but more importantly, my group of people, my circle of friends, family, and I'm glad that they all got to share that with me.
Yeah, and it I should mention that your win at the Mid-Amateur also qualified you for the U.S. Open, which is coming up in June out at Shinnecock Hills in New York. And I'm guessing this experience, you'll feel better prepared for what you'll experience out there just by going through this.
Yeah, no doubt. Just understanding how the week kind of works. There, at Augusta, there, I'm the first couple days, you're just kind of trying to understand where you can go, where you can't go, where you're supposed to be, where you're, what time you're supposed to be, some of the media obligations, some of the things that you don't know or that you had to do. So it'll be definitely more comforting. I'll have more of a, stricter schedule. But then also just understanding, what the fan base looks like. And it's going to be June. I'm going to be in a little bit more golf shape. So I'm not saying I'm going to play, the best and win, but I just feel I feel like I'll feel more comfortable playing golf in, the middle to end of June rather than teeing it up early April. So I'm excited with that note as well. But, I'm still going to practice my butt off because it was a little bit of a sour taste just because I felt like I didn't play my best. I don't think I played terrible, but I'll be ready for Shinnecock for sure.
Yeah, and also should mention your dad, Jeff, was your caddy there at the Masters. Now at the U.S. Open, your brother Brent, who's, a year younger than you, he'll be your caddy there. And how will that be different than having your dad on the bag? Are their personalities a little different?
Yeah, my dad will be on – he was more on the serious side of things and great conversation. And just it's father-son out there. That was just very – I wouldn't say it was emotional, but just different, And with my brother on the bag, it'll be a little bit more loud, a lot more questions, and it'll just be more. I think it'll be a little bit more lighter, which is, both ways were great, And it's a family experience, and I wanted it to be that way, and hopefully we can, get the putter hot and see what happens.
And I think I read a kind of a funny story because on Saturday and Sunday you stayed out there and went back to, as you said, being a patron like you always had been when you'd gone out there. And I thought I saw where Brent's son Bryson asked Dwayne Wade or had an interaction with Basketball Hall of Famer Dwayne Wade, and kind of take me through what happened there.
Yeah, Bryson's actually our nephew, so it's my sister's son. And so we're on hole 14, and Chris Paul and Dwayne Wade are out there, and Bubba's actually talking to Chris Paul. So I, point out to Bryson and my brother and some of my family that, Chris Paul's over there. I didn't even see Dwayne Wade, but Dwayne Wade was there as well. But that was Bryson went over there. And he said, I believe he said, hey, it's great that you're out here, watching my uncle just to start that conversation. And it's like Bryson's, he's going to be a freshman next year. And it's just hilarious because I could, being his uncle, I can picture how that whole conversation went down. And that's just hilarious. So they got to talking, and I think they talked for a good 15, 20 minutes. Just, Bryson's going to be a heck of a basketball player, and he's got a lot of potential as long as he keeps working. And I think that conversation was great, and it was awesome for him. So I'm excited for him on that, and hopefully he can take some of those words that, from an NBA Hall of Famer, potentially, top 50 ever. Into his high school career and further than that.
And talk about a memory that he'll never forget. And he's old enough he'll remember every word, and that's pretty awesome. And I guess the last thing, you're a realtor with Remax Rising, and you've had to try to juggle that during all this preparation for the Masters and playing in the Masters, and that'll continue, I guess, as you go towards the U.S. Open. But have you been able to sell some houses along the way? Yeah,
fortunately, I had a pretty decent spring right before then, and I actually had 2 closings while I was out there in Augusta. So it's always nice to come home with a couple paychecks. And then I got a listing, a few days before I left for Augusta. So we have a few things that they're kind of buttoning up in their house, and we'll get that house probably live in the next couple of weeks. But for a little shout out, 8 Flint Court will be coming on the market here in a couple of weeks. A little 6-bed, 5-bath, probably about $650-ish. But we'll have some more details to come on that one.
But will that help the business side for you? You think that people know your story now, and more people are aware of who you are, and they'll say, heck, why don't we list the house with the guy who played in the Masters?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping so, right? I mean, it's kind of like free marketing a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of good realtors out there. I try to learn from these guys just like I'm learning from these pros on the golf course. And yeah, I mean, I like to have conversation. I feel like now that I've had that experience with being at Augusta and the Masters, I do have a little bit of one up on conversation golf wise. But again, the agents in this town have been super supportive for me. And all the agents back at Remax Rising, John Armstrong, specifically, has been a huge help to me.
Yeah.
And I got a collection of people who are reaching out and saying, hey, if you're gone, let me know what I can do. Jeff Todd,
Mm-hmm.
Sam Hazelton, all my girls in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of shout outs for sure.
Yeah. And I guess we should mention that State Farm sponsored you, came up through with a sponsorship for the Masters, and that obviously had to help because, like you said, you were doing a lot of traveling and trying to get to warm weather to
Sure.
practice and everything. So
Sure.
it all cost money, and so that probably
Correct.
was a pretty big factor, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, shout out to Remax is a sponsor. B-Texting is kind of an undercover sponsor. They do some internal messaging through corporate world. And then I got Callaway, State Farm, kind of late in the picture, but was a huge partner. And just been able to do a lot of fun things with them. My apparel company, Sugarloaf Social Club, who actually does a lot at Augusta.
Okay.
They're pretty much employees there, so I was able to see them out there. And just, I mean, there's just a lot of good people on my side. And the State Farm slogan, like a good neighbor, I mean, this is point in hand, right? I mean, I'm feeling it first class. So just, I mean, it's been, yeah, you're right. It does cost a lot of money. This is not cheap. And, to have all these guys on board helping me is tremendous, on myself and on my family's life for sure.
Yeah. When's the next time you're going to play here? As soon as the weather dries up?
Yeah,
outside?
I think the plan is to play probably tomorrow and then maybe Friday. Well, definitely Friday, maybe tomorrow, depending on the weather. But I mean, even we landed on Monday and got back in town about 2:00, 3:00, and as it is, my son wants to go hit balls, so we went and hit balls Monday night. At the end of the day, I just went and played in the Masters, but I also am still a father,
Yeah.
a husband, a family guy. And I got to go to work. I was telling you earlier, I felt like, I sat in the office all day yesterday, and I just don't feel like I got anything done, but I was there. I'm just kind of looking blankly in the screen, just picturing what the heck just happened. I'm still trying to process all this,
Yeah.
So, yeah, here we are. In, a month and a half, 2 months, I'll be back in the U.S. Open and, hopefully can make something happen.